Quarter-final stage, and the best teams from Portugal, from England, from Spain contest this competition at this stage for the right to be crowned champions. It is set to be hand-to-hand combat from here, and only the very best team will win. Of course, luck will influence the outcome significantly. Welcome to UEFA Champions League coverage here on SportsMax, your home of champions. My name is George Davis. I'm working alongside Andrew Peart. Nigel Rea-Coker is also with us, and we are here because of two games: Liverpool versus Benfica. That's the first leg of that clash, and then of course Manchester City will battle the team from Spain, Atletico Madrid. It's only proper that I take overall comments from my analyst. I'm starting with you, Andrew. Today, a big day for these four teams. There is, on paper, at least one mismatch. Some people say on paper, no, George, there are two mismatches. How do you see the two games overall?
Well, at the quarterfinal stage, I don't think any team right now will consider themselves true underdogs. Yes, they'll have the difference in quality, and the common thing now to do is the transfer market, how much this player is worth and all of that. So I don't think any team will consider themselves far off from the quality of their opponents today. So it's going to be tough games. I again reiterate that some teams will like miss the days of their away goal, like Atletico Madrid going to Man City, and even maybe next week Benfica going to Anfield.
Yeah, Nigel, overall, your take on the two games today?
I think it's great. You know, I think every team that's in this stage right now has earned the right, and I think that's what people have to understand. They haven't made it this far by luck. It's earning the right, being well prepared, being a team that's well organised. And you talk about the likes of Benfica, you know, beating Ajax, which is one of the most feared teams in European football right now for their style of play. A rejuvenated Ajax. And also you talk about the Yellow Submarine, where they got rid of Juventus, I know one of your favourite teams. So every team that's here right now has earned the right to be here, and I think anything is possible still because it's the Champions League.
Yeah, England, Spain, Portugal, Germany still standing. Let's take a look at the Man City Atletico Madrid first up at that clash. Right, so Manchester City versus Atletico Madrid, that's a key game that we are going to focus on. That game will be available on the SportsMax app for those watching on channel. It will be Liverpool versus Benfica for you to digest. Let's start with let's start with Manchester City, Andrew. Fact is that they come here with a lot of pressure as per usual. Ever since Pep Guardiola rolled into town, expectations which were already high have gone stratospherically high. He comes here with a team that is in form, if European form is to be considered, a bit dodgy where the domestic form is concerned. Do you assess that they'll have too much for this Atletico team today?
It's a tough game for them because it's the antithesis of what they like to go up against. Atletico Madrid will... The thing is that Atletico Madrid have been rediscovering their form to be Atletico Madrid from what we know with Simeone over the last 10 years. But for Manchester City, the pressure is really on to win the Champions League. Been to the finals last year, have this expensive assembly of players that they need to deliver. And as you mentioned, the chosen one in terms of the coach who has the ideas to really get them over the hump. So for them, I think a tough game, but you know they can develop that rhythm in the game where they blow away everybody, and the most difficult of opponents are down 4-0 at halftime. So this is a tough one.
Yeah. Nigel, people say that Man City got an easy two games against Sporting Lisbon. I tend to believe that brilliant teams make games look easy. There's no such thing as an easy game in football before you start. So if we are to agree that they made it look easy against Sporting Lisbon, Do you expect that the kind of form that they've been in the Champions League will cause them to be too strong for Atletico today?
No, I think we're in for a fantastic clash. And I think there's a few things you need to look into this game. Manchester City have their style of play. Everyone knows how they're going to play, moving into pocket of space, trying to draw full-backs out, centre-backs out. And the great thing about coming up against Atletico Madrid, like Andrew said, is they're finding their form again. We're starting to see the Atletico Madrid of old. To be a coach, to coach a team, to be comfortable without possession, to be in great defensive blocks, defending for one another, and being comfortable without the ball is one of the hardest things to do at that professional level. They're a great counter-attacking team. You know, Captain Fantastico, who's back in the team, again, another very influential player. And the reason why I say this is, if you pay attention to Manchester City and how they played against Crystal Palace recently in the Premier League, a game where they drew, that just goes to show how important this game is, because Crystal Palace played a very similar style to Atletico Madrid, being well organised, frustrating Manchester City, and they couldn't find a way through. And this goes back to the start of the season, showing the importance of why Pep Guardiola was so desperate to get a Harry Kane. You know, I know people are going to say he plays with this false number 9, you know, he doesn't need a real striker. There's a reason that Pep Guardiola wanted Harry Kane, and it was for games like that, and probably for games like this, because since Sergio Aguero has gone, they haven't really had that number 9 striker to get them goals. And that's when you need a top-class striker in these games, when you're going to have a team that's going to frustrate you so much defensively and try and get your players frustrated and hit you on a counter-attack.
Yeah. We're going to come and talk more about the City players after this. Let's hear, though, from the manager, Pep Guardiola.
Just use the words overthink. Is it possible? Is that a challenge, you know, not to overthink a game like this?
In Champions League, always I overthink. Always create new tactics, new ideas, and tomorrow we will see a new one. Yeah.
So you're obviously being, in English we say wry or dry. You think that's an unfair criticism of you then, that you can sometimes overthink in this competition?
I overthink a lot.
And is that fair?
Absolutely. That's why I had very good results in Champions League. It will be boring my job if all the time I have to see the same way against opponents. They face different ways to play. So if the people can believe I'm going to approach or to play the same way Atletico Madrid and Liverpool, is because I don't like. I'm not thinking about that, because the movements from Liverpool are completely different than Atletico Madrid, especially because the players are different. Every player has a mother and father, you know, and the mother and father have a different personalities, a different type of players, and I have to adapt and adjust. That's why I love to overthink and create stupid tactics again, to after that, when I don't win, being punished. So this is the reason why. And tomorrow I'm going to, tonight I take an inspiration and I'm going to do an incredible tactics tomorrow. So
Pep Guardiola at his sarcastic best. Andrew, if I may come to you, he is bridling at the question about overthinking, but we have ample evidence in his time at Manchester City that Pep Guardiola does overthink things. We have Monaco, those 2 legs. We have Lyon, those 2 legs. And we have the Champions League final against Chelsea last season as evidence that when the pressure is highest in the Champions League, Pep is likely to tinker, and by tinkering, his team will not be themselves.
Yeah, you can't argue about those facts there. And that, you see, when players develop the rhythm, and Nigel can tell you that once a team finds form playing a certain way, it's very difficult, especially at the end of the season, to come and say, let's do this, which really is totally different from what they have been used to coming up right along, what's been getting them results. So I think what he should do is trust his players, trust himself as well, that the plan he has been executing right throughout, with the minor changes from game to game, that's what he should continue with.
Yeah, Nigel, the claim that Pep overthinks things, he's taking exception to that, obviously, by virtue of his sarcastic comments. But as I've said, and Andrew has agreed, the evidence of same is overwhelming. He now needs to prove to us that, all right, I can do the orthodox thing, and my team can get results playing that way.
Yeah, I think Andrew hit the nail on the head spot on there in his response, and he's 100% right. When you coach a team to play a certain way, and then you want, coming towards the end of the season, you want to change certain things, it's very difficult. We all know how intense Pep Guardiola is a coach, you know, from players and past players who played under him. He's a bit too intense at times. It's going to be very difficult when the players are so programmed to play a certain way. If you're coaching and you want your players to adapt, that's something you have to do from the start. You give them a basic foundation of team shape, team play, your style of play, but you also encourage them to take responsibility. And like you both just said there, and Andrew said, he has to trust himself and trust his players. But that comes also from the coaching element of it, letting the players break free at times from the regimented ways that he has them playing, very structured, and a bit robotic at times. And I think that's why sometimes the sign of Jack Grealish is finding it a bit hard to settle in at the moment, because he hasn't kind of adapted to that. And even Mahrez took a while to settle into the system and style of play in Manchester City.
Yeah. Let's talk, gentlemen, about Raheem Sterling, recently named Jamaica's 60th ambassador. Of course, Jamaica celebrated 60th anniversary of independence in August this year. Sterling came home briefly to be part of the visit of the Royals and to formally receive his instruments as ambassador for Jamaica 60. I get the impression, though, Andrew, that at 27 years old, Raheem Sterling is almost, based on how he's used, a big part player at Man City. And you may look at the numbers and say, well, George, he started 30-odd Premier League games the 2 seasons up to this point. At this point, he has 20-odd games already. He had 20 goals 2019-20. Since then, he's had 10 and 10. He has 10 this season. So he's been a main part of what City have done. But it doesn't feel that way. And I tend to think that at this stage, if you name every outstanding footballer in history, at 27 years old, they were the mainstay for their teams. They were first names on team sheet. Even if they were having a bad run, their manager would play them until that bad run ended. Not so with Sterling at 27.
Yeah, I don't get the feeling that he's that invincible at Manchester City. And you look at it this way, that last season, which was 2021. Man City had a tough start, but the consistent player throughout that spell of like 13, 14 games was Raheem Sterling. The seasons before, he was one of the main players coming up with the important goals. But I think how last season panned out, where he was the main person scoring the goals, our important player, then fell off, not getting into the squads, not even used in major games. I think he lost a bit of trust in his manager. And I think that when you lose that trust, then it takes a time to get back. And I don't think it will be repaired. Remember, there was a time where Sterling was touted to be sold in the transfer window. So I think some level of trust has been eroded, and that affects the player at this stage.
Nigel, when you look at Raheem Sterling's numbers, they are outstanding for the player at 27 years old. If you just go by his EPL numbers, he scores a goal every 3 games. He's 300 and odd EPL games deep, over 100 goals in his EPL career. Has never scored more than 6 goals in any Champions League campaign. And you get to think that a player with those numbers would be one of the first names, if not the first name, on the team sheet. He's not so at City. Sometimes he's used in a bit part way. Hence, his anonymous performance, Nigel, when tasked with starting the Champions League final last year, because he'd been in the doghouse before that. Do you think, when all things are considered, that Pep has managed the talents of this young man well enough?
I think Andrew's got a point now. I think that there has been a bit of a strain in their relationship, especially the period where there was talk of him being sold. And at the age that he is at, it is that so-called prime age that they say for footballers. He should be the number one. Manchester City should be all about Raheem Sterling. He's the main guy, but we don't see that. Again, to a certain degree, you look at the squad assembled at Manchester City. That's not something you're going to see in world football. You know, whether it's the starting lineup or the second 11, they could probably compete to be a top 4 team in the Premier League or win domestic leagues all over Europe with their second string team. So that is just the level of competitiveness and competition there. I think for Raheem Sterling's situation is something that he has to address himself, whether he wants to continue in the same vein at Manchester City or whether he wants to move to a new challenge. You know, he's a top talent where all the top 1% clubs in Europe would take him in a heartbeat. So it's whether he's ready to challenge himself and go somewhere where he'll be playing consistent and being the main man and fitting into that team. You know, I'd say out of just curiosity, I wouldn't be surprised if Barcelona would be a great fit for him right now. You know, it's a young team coming through. He's still only 27. You can go and have 4 or 5 years in Barcelona to rebuild Barcelona, to take them back to the heights that they need to be in. and I don't think anyone could be disappointed with that. That's just my opinion on that.
Yeah. Andrew, let's talk about Atletico Madrid now, because what is true is that Diego Simeone has weathered a storm. We all remember standing in the same spot talking about how the team's form was dodgy heading into the first leg of that Manchester United two-legged tie. And we did reference how the Atletico Madrid bosses had said, look, for what he's done for us in the decade that he's been with us, he leaves when he says when. None of us will push him out. It's a good manager, Andrew, who goes through the spell that Simeone has, and has taken Atletico Madrid to a point now. In their last 8 games, they've won 7, drawn the other, only conceded 4 goals in all competitions. It is the form of a top team. It's not exaggeration, Andrew, to say Atletico have found their mojo back.
Yeah, and if it's one team or one manager that you will say not going to overthink or not will go through that period of an identity crisis, it's Diego Simeone. You see, for brief spells, he tried something different and never worked and reverted to his normal modus operandi. But what I must say about this Atletico team coming into the Champions League game against Man City is that what normally reaches a lot of top clubs in Europe is that they come up against Man City and they have to change the way they play domestically, because normally they are front foot teams. And now Atletico Madrid comes up against Manchester City having to play the same way that they have been playing for the entire season and the entire decade. So that sort of shift in mentality will not pressure them any at all, because there's no change. We have always been solid defensively. We play counter-attacking football. We're in-your-face, aggressive type of team. And that's what we'll be every day. In Europe, in Spain, it doesn't really matter. So I think that bodes them well for this game, as opposed to in the previous leg, like Lisbon, dominant on the front foot in Portugal, but now have to change the way they play to come up against a strong team.
Yeah. Nigel, the identity, speaking of identity and crises and crisis, the identity at Atletico Madrid seems to have been restored. We wondered if Simeone had lost his powers where organizing a team to be difficult to break down was concerned. The last 8 games have put that to bed. They are what they used to be, what he made them, what he forged them as. And he takes his team into this game, Nigel, full of confidence that his boys can blunt the attacking force that is Man City under Pep Guardiola, you think?
Yeah, this is the perfect game for Manchester City. Like Andrew said, they're not going to have to change anything. This is what Diego Simeone's teams have always been about. They're happy to concede possession. They're happy to let teams have great possession to them. All he cares about is well-organised, hard-working, industrious team full of men. That's one thing you've got to remember. His team are the tough tackling, similar players to similar characters that he had as a player. And if you don't have the same kind of personality as Simeone, you're going to find it hard to play for him. I think what was lost was probably a little bit of the criticism he got about his style of playing his team got to him a bit. And that's why he probably tried to change his way, tried to make his team a bit more pleasant on the eye, a bit more fashionable. He went away from what made him Diego Simeone and what made Atletico Madrid great. And I think now he's gone back to believing in what he established and what he started. And that's why we're seeing them get the results now. We're seeing them, play the Atletico way that we've known them to be under Diego Simeone.
They don't score many goals, Andrew, and that is why everyone they score is worth so much. If you look at their top scorers this season, Angel Correa and Luis Suarez in all competitions, just 12 goals, 24 between them, and even split 12. Joao Felix has, 9 in all competitions. Griezmann, who's missed a lot of the campaign, is still in single digits. So when they score, they place a premium on what they have. And they have frontmen who are not prolific, but are efficient. And Correa, and especially Suarez, if he starts, will be looking ahead to damage this English side.
Definitely. And they're smart players who know that there will be a lot of space on offer, especially during the counter-attacks for them, because they can expect Manchester City to push players forward and leave gaps behind. So you will see some level of ingenuity, some cleverness coming out of those players and trying to find the spaces that they can really dominate and pounce on.
Yeah, Nigel, 20 seconds. I have to ask you about Koke before we go. Central midfielder, keeps it simple, very effective, not flashy, doesn't get many headlines. But how important is he to this Atletico Madrid midfield?
Very important. If you're the captain of a Diego Simeone team, you are the man. Very industrious, like you said, keeps it simple, old school, box to box, and he's always in the heartbeat of everything, putting his foot in, winning the ball back, keeping possession, and he keeps a steady head. You know, he's one of the very few midfielders in the world who control the flow of the game still, which is an art itself.
Yeah, involved in only 11% of Atletico's goals. He doesn't care about the attack. It's defensive that his brief is all about. Predictions, gentlemen, as we go to this break. Nigel, what say you?
I'm going to go 1-0 Atletico.
1-1.
1-1. So 1-0 and 1-1. Not much in it from my expert analysts. So when we break and come back, we're going to talk about Liverpool and Benfica. Nigel,
Yeah.
can you just tilt down your screen a little bit? Too much headroom.
Okay.
It's the joint most successful team in all of English football. Liverpool with their 66 titles against the most successful team in the history of Portuguese football, Benfica. Liverpool have 6 Champions League titles to their name. Benfica have won it twice, 66-1, 61-62, the Lisbon Lions, and their outstanding forward Eusebio, both teams dripping in history. And today they meet in the first leg of their quarter-final clash. So yeah, let's get right to it. Overall, Benfica coming into this game, there was a loss on the weekend against Braga in the league. They were 12 points behind the leaders, Porto, and they have played a game extra. So when people saw that 15 points, I called it 12 on the game in hand, because the game in hand is not points. Well, ask Arsenal about that. Yeah, but they seem to be out of the title race. There are injury doubts about Adel Tarabt, because he had an issue which caused him to miss the Braga clash. Overall, they come into this game with questions being asked about their state of mind, but these aren't dissimilar to the questions that were asked on the eve of the Ajax clash. And look what they did, Andrew.
Yeah, so I think for Benfica here, it's really about enjoying the game. They're out of the TACA, the Portugal, the cup competition,
Yes.
and they're far behind in the league. So the Champions League is the last hurrah for them. They can win it and get back in next year, but we know about that. What they have to do, despite all the plans that they'll have for Liverpool, it's about really enjoying the game. Not being burdened by, oh, this is Sadio Mane, this is Mohamed Salah, this is Jota or Firmino. it's about really just going to play how they have played. So you mentioned the Ajax game, they turned up for that. They had a group where they needed to turn up as well, and they did so against like Dortmund and teams like so forth. So it comes down to executing, but really enjoying and knowing that we are deserving to be here.
Yeah, Nigel, Benfica knocked Ajax out, and if Ajax are considered to be considered giants, and they are giants of European football, Liverpool is a giant of an altogether different size. Does the Portuguese team look at this Liverpool team and believe that they can do to them what they did to Ajax?
I'm sure they do. You know, I think that if they were smart about it, that they would actually be happy to be considered underdogs. There's no pressure on them whatsoever. I'm sure that there's no expectation. Let's not be naive about these. Benfica is still a very dangerous side. They're a very good team. They knocked out a very good Ajax team. And I'm sure they're going to believe deep down inside that they could maybe cause an upset with Liverpool. Liverpool are going to play the same way. You know, nothing to lose, attacking football. And I'm sure Benfica are going to look to expose the space that their fullbacks leave when they're pushing forward. They're going to believe it. They won't say it much publicly. By guaranteeing their dressing room, they're thinking that it could cause another upset. The only thing that I would say, which would be very difficult, is as experienced as their back fours Benfica do have, they're going to have their hands full with the talent that Liverpool have, with whoever plays in that front three, whether it's Jota, Mane, Salah. There's just too much energy, too much skill and technical ability for that aging back line of Benfica. I think that's where the real problem is going to be.
Let me break the alternate question pattern that we've been using and stay with you for this one, Nigel, because nobody has managed to pin down precisely what impact home crowd advantage has on a particular team, or any team for that matter. And I go to home support, Nigel, because of the way the crowd was into that first leg against Ajax in the previous round. They really helped them, almost like that 12th man. Do players, well, and I'm asking you because of your experience at the top level, the crowd really keyed in, singing from half an hour before the game starts, cheering you for every tackle, encouraging you for every ball that you lose and are trying to recover. Is that enough? Will that be enough to lift a team like Benfica to the levels that are necessary to damage Liverpool in this first leg at home?
The crowd plays such a big part. And I'm telling you this now, any footballer who says they don't is lying to you. I've been in games where the crowd literally is that 12-man spirit. And not only does it lift up the home team, but what also it does make the away team feel a bit negative, feel a bit nervous, and it puts them on the back foot and they'll start making mistakes. And it really takes players to another level if you embrace that energy. It's not the same for every football team. It really depends on the team, the history, and the culture of that city. That's what really plays a part. But having a crowd get behind you, especially for clubs like Benfica, you talk about clubs like Liverpool, if Liverpool were away, it plays a big part. If you look at one of the greatest Champions League games we saw, that was the Anfield faithful when they got behind Liverpool for that home tie against Barcelona, where no one thought it would be possible. Crowds play a big part in these games, especially this late on in the competition.
Andrew, Darwin Núñez is Benfica's latest outstanding attacker, outstanding player. They have them all over the field that they've had in their history. He's 22 years old, he's a Uruguayan. He has very good touch. I'm very impressed with his work on the floor when the ball is there. He's tall, he has size, he has speed, and he looks like he's something special.
Yeah, the complete package. You normally don't find big players with good technical skills, and kind of remind you a little bit of a young Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Absolutely.
The way he plays,
the way he moves. Yes.
Yes, so he will be a handful. I watched him even recently in the World Cup qualifiers for Uruguay, and said this is a good find for Benfica, who typically scouts that South American market. So Liverpool should go with speed and size with him, so you can really expect like maybe Van Dijk and Konate to go up against them, to go up against Sanchez. So I'll be very comfortable as a Liverpool fan seeing that duo of centre-backs going up against him, because he's that type of player who is very physical, very deceptive in his movements, and technically good, strong player.
Nigel, I am so pleased as a non-Liverpool supporter to be able to say how impressed I am with Diogo Jota and his progress since joining the Anfield club. He had bags of talent when he was at Wolves, and let's not forget he's bounced around on some loan deals, Paco Ferreira, Atletico Madrid, and he's been around the shop, even though he's just 25, and he's found his feet here at Liverpool. It's tremendous that in a team, Nigel, of so many stars, he looks as if he is as good as the best attacker Liverpool has right now.
Yeah, I think Jurgen Klopp made a comment this week recently to say that he's basically developing to become a world-class striker, which he is. And that's what happens when you go to certain clubs and you have the right fit in the sense of a manager that believes in you, a coaching staff that believes in you, and you're surrounded by world-class players, you're only going to raise your game. And that's what it is for Diogo Jota. I think that him being at Liverpool was the perfect fit, the club that he really needed, where he's getting the attention that he needed to develop. And he's also learning from the likes of Salah and Mane and surrounded by top players, because the better players that you play with, the better you become as a player yourself. If you're a true student of the game, you will look at your colleagues as much as you admire them, and you know you deserve to be there. You'll be learning certain different things and taking bits from their game and adding it to your game. And I feel that that's what he's done, and that's why he's at the level he's at now.
Let's talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andrew, because what is true is that, you know how especially the Jamaicans are, we don't rate the player who is technically excellent. We rate the player who can dribble a man and fling the ball over his head and through his legs and beat him 3, 4, 5 times in the same spot on the field. That's what we regard as skill. But Trent Alexander-Arnold's deliveries from the dead ball, from the run of play, absolutely outstanding. And if we look through the history of world football, the players with his precision from delivery, from the run of play and from dead ball, that list is very, very short. And he is such a key cog in this Liverpool team.
Very much so. And what we have to remember is where Jurgen Klopp found Trent Alexander playing in the Liverpool Academy. He was playing as a central midfielder. And what we have realized is an evolution in Trent's game this season. No longer is he just a player. As you can see here on screen, he picks up the ball like in a central midfielder's position. Salah is out wide given the width. That's normally where Alexander-Arnold will go. But here he stays in the midfield position. The delivery is the same. The threat is even more potent because he has this range of passing. He can put it out wide to Mane, to Salah, or he can put in those crosses from the half spaces, which are the most difficult ones to deal with because it's not from the side that you can look on. It's not from in front that you're pretty much square on. It's like diagonally coming into you. Do you drop deep? Do you step up? It's very difficult from there. But his game and the evolution that he has been undergoing, it's pretty similar to an aging Dani Alves now who popped up at Barcelona. No longer asked to go up and down the flank, but to play inside that central midfield role as a wing back to help control the game, and that's what Alexander-Arnold is doing.
Yeah, the middle of the park, Nigel, for Liverpool, you hardly see a Liverpool game where every man named in that midfield doesn't give you at least a 7.5 out of 10. It's not a segment of the team that gets a lot of the headlines. Van Dijk gets his, the goalkeeper gets his from time to time, and of course the forwards get so much of the headlines where Liverpool are concerned. But this midfield is so strong, and as a unit, I don't think world football accepts how good the Liverpool midfield is, regardless of which combination Klopp selects.
Yes, it's regardless of that, and I think what you have to give credit to is Jurgen Klopp. You know, he's got a team where they're united. They all have the same goal. There isn't any egos in that team, and they're happy because they're winning. That's just a simple fact. When you can do that and build that kind of environment as a manager, it has to be a lot of credit to the management and the recruiting and getting the right players. You look at Diaz, another recent signing, and how quickly he settled into this Liverpool side. And it's great because the camaraderie is there, the togetherness is there. They all are believing and have the same goal of achieving, of winning championships, winning Champions League, winning everything that they can. And that's what keeps a great harmony. But that centre midfield area, regardless of who plays, it's just tremendous in talent. And this is, for me, probably the best or greatest Liverpool squad that's ever been assembled when you look at talent and players that's available.
Yeah, Andrew, I know some Liverpool fans who are very hard to please. They complain about everything. When the Liverpool team is named ahead of a game, they look for who is partnering Van Dijk at centre-half, and they complain if that man is picked or if that other man is picked. Is there a first choice centre-half pairing for Liverpool in your mind, Andrew? Well, let me rephrase the question. Van Dijk plus who represents Liverpool's best centre-half pairing? All factors concerned or considered. He's silent, Nigel.
I want to say Joel Matip, but then you think about going up against a striker who is very fast. Then Konate is that player, but I say Joel Matip is that first choice partner for Van Dijk.
What say you about that, Nigel? At centre-half, Van Dijk plus who represents Liverpool's best centre-half pairing?
I think Matip. I think him and Matip definitely do, because they've got a better understanding. They've played more games together. I think Konate's still got a bit to learn. He's still learning. I don't think he's ready for that kind of starting role yet, consistently to play week in, week out. Because what does happen is the more games you play with each other in a partnership, whether it's centre midfield or centre back, the greater the understanding is together as players. How to play, what your movements are going to be, knowing your first, second and third move before it's even happened. So that's what happens. So I'll have to agree with Andrew. I think Matip and Van Dijk right now have been playing a lot together, and they know each other better than any other partnership.
Yeah, Joel Matip pariahed by his home football association in Cameroon, but he's making a good fist of his career at Liverpool. Let's look at these starting 11s, gentlemen. Let's see what Benfica has as it pops up on the screen right now. So, Lacodimos in goal, Gilberto, Grimaldo, Vertonghen, Everton, Nunes, Rafa Silva, Weigl, Otamendi and Adel Taarabt fit for the game. Four men in yellow card trouble. What say you about this starting 11, Andrew?
Well, first and foremost, you see those players in yellow cards. So standard 4-4-2, looking for a lot of width or wide penetration from Everton and Rafa Silva. But pretty balanced, strong through the middle of the field, and also a lot of players with experience playing in Champions League for different clubs. So Vertonghen, Otamendi, you look at those players, Julian Weigl as well. Pretty solid team, no changes from how they will operate. Maybe sometime you can see them flexing maybe a 4-4-2 diamond based on previous games, but standard approach from Benfica.
Nigel, you'd forgive a team of strikers, especially if they play for Liverpool, for looking at the two in the central midfield, Taarabt and Weigl, and looking at the two at centre-half, Vertonghen and Otamendi, and believing that these boys are soft.
I think that's a fair statement, but they're going to have their hands full. They're going to have their hands full. I think that the Liverpool team right now will be looking at that square, that unit, and thinking, yeah, it's going to be our day. You know, Vertonghen and Otamendi is a liability at times. As good as he is, he's very dangerous in set pieces. But during the game, he can be a liability. And with the movement of whether it's Salah, Jota, or whoever Liverpool choose to start, they're going to cause him problems. They're running down the side, their movement, their quick movement, it's going to cause them problems. And that unit of that square, if you look at it, for me, is going to have a very, very hard time against this Liverpool team. Yes, if Liverpool approach with the right attitude.
Yeah. Let's look at the Klopp 11 for this game, this first leg. Alisson, Fabinho, Van Dijk, Konate gets the start. Thiago Alcantara, Keita, Mane, Salah, Luis Diaz, Robertson and Alexander-Arnold. The right 11, Nigel?
Whatever 11 they put out, it's the right level for Liverpool. Let's be real. When you look at that squad there, I don't think that Benfica will be looking forward to this game at all. You look at that top three there, Mane, Salah and Diaz, especially Diaz now coming in full of energy. It's going to be a very, very tough game. As much as they're in a 4-4-2 and they would want to suppress and try and double up on Liverpool's fullbacks, it's going to be a tough game for Benfica.
Solid as a rock, Andrew?
Yeah, and from this you see that the front three players, that will create a lot of movement against the Benfica defenders. Interesting to see how Benfica decides to play, whether they drop deep or whether they go up in the faces of Liverpool or the Liverpool players here, because you saw with the Inter Milan game at Anfield where they pressed the Liverpool midfielders and then that really changed the game somewhat, or changed the game Liverpool wanted to play. So this is a good game, good team for keeping the ball or dominating up top with the movements of that front three.
Yeah, James Milner, the old man of football, still on the bench. Let's take some predictions, gentlemen. Andrew, you first.
2-0 Liverpool.
Nigel, what say you?
3-1 Liverpool.
All right, let's look at the road to the final graphic, after which we'll have the special treat that fans who watch football at Benfica Stadium of Light are fetted to before the game. So Benfica Liverpool, the winner will clash with the winner of the City versus Atletico Madrid tie, and then Villarreal Bayern will contend with the winner of Chelsea Real Madrid on their way to that final in Paris 2022. Of course, you know that the final was switched because of the foolishness that Russia began in the Ukraine. All right, let's send you away with this image of our eagle. There we go. I want to train an eagle to be able to do this. I can keep dreaming, I can keep wishing. I can get a battery operated eagle. Maybe I
get an eagle first.
Get an eagle first. All right, good. All right, gentlemen, I'll see you at halftime. Let's hope that we have a good, clean game and that we have a lot to talk about at the interval.
You've just watched the UEFA Champions League pre-game show on SportsMax, sponsored by Heineken.
Make it difficult for Liverpool.
People say this is the weaker half of the draw. The winners of Benfica, Liverpool will play Villarreal or Bayern Munich in the semi-finals. This is the team a lot of Liverpool fans wanted, Benfica, but I think it's perilous to underestimate them. I watched them draw 0-0 away at Barcelona in the group stage, having beaten Barcelona so impressively here by 3 goals. And they've got some good